Fire your entire team by Friday or I'll do it for you. Victoria Sterling tapped her manicured fingernails against my desk calendar like she was marking time until my execution. Her voice had that flat, corporate tone people use when they're about to ruin lives but want to sound professional about it. My name is Garrett Morrison. I am 47 years old, and I've been running operations teams longer than this woman's been out of business school. I gripped my coffee mug tighter, feeling the ceramic warm against my palms. These guys had just delivered our best quarter in 3 years. The numbers don't lie, Garrett. She leaned back in her chair, all confidence in designer suits. Your team costs twice what standard operations run. The board brought me in to streamline, and your little collection of veterans is the definition of bloat. Through my office window, I could see my team working. Scott Williams debugging security protocols with the focus only a former Navy cryptogore could bring. Anthony Brooks sketching equipment modifications, his Army engineer background showing in every precise line. These weren't just employees. They were my guys. They need proper notice, I said, keeping my voice steady the way you learn in the service. 2 weeks minimum. Friday. She straightened her jacket. Handle it yourself, or I'll bring security to escort them out. Your choice. After she left, I sat there staring at the commendation letters pinned to my wall. 12 years I'd been building something here at Phoenix Defense Systems. We weren't just another contractor churning out overpriced widgets for the Pentagon. We solved problems other companies couldn't even identify. That night I called my team together at Murphy's bar down the street. 6 faces looking at me over beer glasses, trust in their eyes the way it used to be when I briefed missions back in my Navy days. Sterling wants you all gone by Friday, I said, watching the shock spread across their faces. But the Blackwater contract renewal is next month, Rachel Parker protested. She'd been our quality engineer for 9 years, raised 2 kids as a single mom while keeping our standards higher than anyone demanded. Apparently we're too expensive. Perry Hutchinson stood up, crossing his arms. 20-year Navy vet, knew logistics better than anyone at the Pentagon. So that's it? 8 years building this thing, and we're just overhead to be cut? I twisted my wedding ring minus old habit from before the divorce. What Sterling doesn't know is you're not just my team. I looked around the table. You're not just employees of Phoenix Defense Systems either. Let me back up and tell you how this started. 7 years ago, Phoenix was hemorrhaging money. Defense contracts were getting more competitive, and our old minus school approach wasn't cutting it anymore. The CEO, Colonel Wesley Harrison, gave me carte blanche to fix operations or watch the company die. I handpicked 6 people others had written off. Scott Williams, disabled in an IED blast in Afghanistan, had cyber skills that made Pentagon contractors look like amateurs. Anthony Brooks, former Army Corps of Engineers, could redesign anything to work better and cheaper. Rachel Parker understood quality control like her life depended on it minus, because in our business, lives actually did. Diana Foster had been shuffling papers and accounting, but I saw how she caught discrepancies others missed. Perry Hutchinson was driving supply trucks, but he understood military logistics from the ground up. Ken DeCross was answering phones, but she spoke 3 languages and remembered every client conversation. We claimed a forgotten conference room as headquarters, while executives held crisis meetings about losing contracts. We quietly redesigned how Phoenix operated. Within 2.5 years, we'd landed the biggest duty contract in company history. 3 years later, our efficiency improvements had saved the government for $20 million. The brass celebrated their leadership while we kept working behind the scenes. Colonel Harrison knew what we'd accomplished minus he doubled our budget and gave us freedom to tackle any operational challenge. We became the Special Operations Division, though most employees had no idea what we actually did. Then came the restructuring. Harrison was under pressure from investors to bring in efficiency experts. That's when Victoria Sterling arrived with her reputation for slashing overhead and delivering quarterly profit bumps. Her last 3 companies had all hired the same outside contractor after her improvements minus Tech Flow Solutions. Our first meeting should have warned me. So, you run this Special Operations Division, she said, scrolling through her tablet. What exactly do you operate? We identify problems before they become crises, I explained. Last quarter, we prevented a security breach that could have cost us the entire Blackwater contract. She barely looked up. Your division costs $1.80 million annually. That's excessive for support functions. We're not support. We're innovation. Everyone claims they're essential. Darrit. Her smile never reached her eyes. I need measurable outcomes, not war stories. I provided reports showing for $1.80 million in prevented losses, 6 process improvements that increased efficiency 30%, client retention worth to $1 million annually. She set them aside without reading them. For 3 weeks, she shadowed departments, interviewed employees, examined budgets. She never once spoke directly with my team members or asked about their specific contributions. Watched her building her case, searching for evidence to support conclusions she'd already reached. Then Friday, she demanded I fire everyone. I'd seen it coming. But the cruelty of the timeline still hit me hard. 72 hours to eliminate people who'd saved this company. After the team meeting at Murphy's, I laid out what I suspected. Sterling's making cuts everywhere, but we're first because she doesn't understand what we actually do. She sees expenses without recognizing value. So we're supposed to accept this, Rachel demanded, after everything we built here. No, I said quietly. We're going to show her exactly who we are. How? Anthony asked. She doesn't even acknowledge us in the hallways. I smiled for the first time that day. Remember how we solved the Hampton Roads logistics nightmare? By going around official channels, Perry said slowly. Using relationships instead of protocols. Exactly. Sterling thinks information flows through organizational charts. She doesn't understand it flows through people. What Sterling didn't know was that my team weren't just Phoenix employees. Scott Williams had designed security systems for half the contractors in our industry. His former Navy buddies now worked throughout the defense establishment. Anthony Brooks consulted for the Army Corps of Engineers on weekends. His recommendations carried weight with procurement officers. Rachel Parker's quality standards had become the informal benchmark for 3 major suppliers. Diana Foster's financial analysis was so respected that duty auditors called her directly when they had questions. Perry and Miranda had relationships spanning the entire military-industrial complex. We weren't just a team. We were a network. For the next 3 days, we played defeated. We packed personal items slowly, transferred files to shared drives, trained replacements for urgent matters. To anyone watching, we'd resigned ourselves to the inevitable. Sterling stopped by Thursday afternoon. I'm pleased you're handling this professionally. Some managers get emotional about business necessities. I understand the requirements, I replied, placing family photos in a cardboard box. This is why you'll survive the cuts. You're practical. She tapped her tablet. I've scheduled exit interviews tomorrow at 2 p.m. Security will collect access cards afterward. After she left, I sent one message to the team. Protocol Blue was active. Friday proceeded with military efficiency. My team cleared desks, said goodbyes, attended exit interviews where Sterling explained their termination with rehearsed sympathy. Security collected badges. Passwords were changed. Email accounts deactivated. By 5 p.m., it was 6 talented people were no longer employees of Phoenix Defense Systems. Sterling sent me a brief message, clean execution. Well done. I didn't reply. Instead, I made a phone call. It's time, Colonel. You sure about this, Garrett? There's significant risk if this goes wrong. I'm certain. Monday's board meeting. Full demonstration. The weekend crawled by as I prepared. By Monday morning, I felt that strange calm that comes after you've committed to a course of action. I arrived early, wearing my dress blues for the first time in years. Sterling was already there, reviewing presentations for the quarterly board meeting. I've included your team elimination and the efficiency highlights, she told me. 12% immediate cost reduction is impressive. Thank you for recognizing our contribution. At 9 a.m., board members began arriving. 8 men and 3 women in expensive suits, greeted by Sterling with practiced charm. "We have significant progress to report," she announced. "The restructuring is already showing measurable results." I stood quietly at the back watching. At precisely 9:15, the side door opened. Colonel Harrison entered first, followed by 6 familiar faces wearing civilian clothes but carrying themselves like the professionals they were. Sterling's presentation stopped mid-sentence. "What are they doing here?" "These people were terminated Friday." I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because the board members were standing to greet my team with handshakes and warm recognition. Admiral George Fletcher, our board chairman, embraced Anthony Brooks like an old friend. "How's that bridge project in Louisiana working out? Ahead of schedule and under budget?" Anthony beamed. "Your recommendation to the Corps opened every door." Across the room, Helen Caldwell was showing Scott pictures on her phone. "The cyber custody workshop was incredible. 20 veterans now have jobs because of your training program." Sterling stepped toward Harrison, her voice tight. "What's happening here?" "These people were terminated." "Were they?" Harrison replied mildly. "I don't recall authorizing that." The room had transformed into a reunion. Diana discussed community development projects with the finance director. Perry chatted with 3 board members about their son's military service. Miranda approached with coffee, handing a cup to General Richard Stone. 2 sugars, no cream," she said. Stone squeezed her shoulder. "Just how I like it. How's your daughter doing at West Point?" "Top 10% of her class." That recommendation letter opened every door. Each interaction revealed connections I'd never disclosed to Sterling. Relationships built through years of genuine service, not corporate networking events. Sterling grabbed my arm, fingernails digging through my jacket. "You set me up." "You never asked who they really were," I said, gently removing her hand. "You saw expenses on a spreadsheet, not people." Harrison called the meeting to order. My team members didn't leave as Sterling expected. They took seats among the board, not as visitors but as participants, before our quarterly review. Harrison said, "We should address Friday's events." Sterling straightened. "As part of efficiency initiatives, we eliminated an unnecessary specialty team draining resources without measurable return." Admiral Fletcher chuckled. "Unnecessary? You mean the team that landed us the Blackwater contract?" Sterling's professional smile cracked. "The financial data clearly showed perhaps we should clarify what this team actually accomplishes." Harrison interrupted. "Garrett," I stood, feeling oddly calm. 7 years ago, when we faced potential bankruptcy, I proposed creating a team that operated differently. People selected for problem-solving ability, not just credentials. I pointed to each team member. Scott redesigned our security infrastructure after identifying vulnerabilities that could have cost us everything. Anthony's equipment modifications increased efficiency 47%. Rachel's quality improvements prevented 3 major recalls. With each accomplishment, Sterling's expression tightened. She scrolled frantically through her tablet, searching for information she'd never bothered to collect. "These accomplishments aren't in the quarterly reports," she protested. "They are," Diana said calmly. "Just not labeled as our work. We solve problems, then hand solutions to appropriate departments for implementation. Which is why," I continued, "terminating them without consultation was a significant error. The Blackwater renewal depends entirely on their work." Fletcher leaned forward. "Victoria, did you review this team's actual contributions before eliminating them?" I requested comprehensive data, which I provided. I said, opening my laptop, "Including this email thread where you acknowledged receipt but never discussed intents." The projector displayed our exchange. Detailed reports attached to multiple messages. Her cursory responses without engagement. Helen Caldwell frowned. "So you eliminated critical personnel without understanding their function." "I understood their cost," Sterling insisted. "Efficiency requires difficult decisions. Efficiency without effectiveness is just expensive failure," Admiral Fletcher said. Harrison stood. "Let me clarify what happened. Victoria terminated 6 people whose work represents 18% of next quarter's projected revenue. The temperature seemed to drop. Board members exchanged glances heavy with concern. Fortunately, Harrison continued, Garrett alerted me to the situation. Officially, these team members were transferred to special project status under direct board supervision. They never stopped working. Relief rippled through the room as Harrison launched into the quarterly presentation. Every positive metric connected to my team's work. Sterling sat rigid, her narrative of heroic cost minus, cutting unraveling with each slide. During a brief break, I stepped outside for air. Sterling followed, confronting me by the water cooler. You deliberately undermined me. She said, voice slow but intense. No, I gave you multiple opportunities to understand what we do. You chose not to listen. This isn't over. The board may be impressed by your network, but numbers don't lie. Your people are still overpriced. Something in her tone made me pause. What does that mean? She smiled coldly. It means I've been brought in to make changes, and I won't be deterred by office politics or friendship networks. Before I could respond, we were called back inside. The meeting resumed with project reviews, but I couldn't shake the veiled threat in Sterling's words. As presentations continued, I noticed Sterling typing rapidly on her tablet, occasionally glancing toward Harrison with calculation in her eyes. Whatever happened this morning hadn't defeated her minus, it had changed her strategy. When the meeting ended, board members lingered to chat with my team. Sterling approached Harrison, speaking too quietly for me to hear. His expression remained neutral, but he nodded several times before she left. What was that about? I asked when I could finally speak with him privately. She's requesting access to all financial data related to your team's projects. Says she needs comprehensive analysis. That's reasonable. I don't trust her motives. Neither do I. Which is why Diana's assisting her. Full transparency. Full supervision. Over the next week, strange calm descended. My team returned to work, continuing projects as before. Sterling retreated to her office, surrounded by spreadsheets and reports. Thursday, Diana reported back after 3 days working with Sterling. She's searching for inefficiencies, but also asking about decision processes, approval chains, who signs off on what. Mapping power structure, I'm used. Exactly. And she's particularly interested in the Blackwater project. Blackwater was our most critical contract, minus a complete maintenance protocol redesign that would either secure our position for years or fail spectacularly if mishandled. Every member of my team had contributed essential components. Keep watching. Document everything. That evening, Scott called with alarming news. Someone's been in our project files. Security logs show access from Sterling's credentials. Examining code sections nobody but specialists should care about. Could she be copying our work? Worse. Some timestamps have been altered. Small changes to test parameters. Modifications to security protocols. My blood ran cold. She's sabotaging the project, creating problems subtle enough to cause failure without obvious fingerprints. We held an emergency team meeting at my apartment that night. 6 concerned faces gathered in my living room as Scott explained what he'd found. Can we fix it? Rachel asked. Already did. Restored clean backups, but she doesn't know that. She's trying to discredit us, and Thani realized. Make the project fail, then blame our work. Classic destruction pattern, Diana added. Create failure. Use it to justify permanent elimination. Then rebuild with preferred vendors. I paced my living room, thinking, we need to understand her endgame. Check her history at previous companies, Perry suggested. Same pattern everywhere. But why? Miranda asked. What does she gain? Reputation, Antoni suggested. Each success makes her more valuable. No, there's something else. I turned to Diana. What questions did she ask? Any patterns? Diana thought carefully. She was particularly interested in approval processes for external vendors. The pieces connected. The vendors for Blackwater Minus who selected them. We interviewed 8 possibilities. Anthony said, recommended 3 to the board. I opened my laptop, searching news articles about Sterling's previous companies. 3 restructurings, 3 different companies subsequently contracting with the same technology provider TechFlow Solutions. There it is, I whispered. She's not just cutting teams. She's steering contracts. The room fell silent as implications sank in. If Blackwater fails, Scott said slowly, we'll need emergency services to fix it. And Sterling will recommend TechFlow. I concluded. Much larger contract than they would have received initially. We need proof, Diana insisted. This is serious. We'll get proof. But first, we protect Blackwater. We worked through the night developing strategy. By morning, we had a plan. Risky, but potentially decisive. If we're wrong, Anthony said, this could backfire badly. If we're right, I countered, she's not just cutting jobs. She's destroying companies from within. I looked at each team member minus these people who'd become more than colleagues. Are we doing this? 6 nods answered me. Monday morning, I requested a meeting with Sterling. She received me with cool professionalism. I wanted to discuss Blackwater's final testing phase, I began. I've been reviewing documentation. There are concerning gaps in security protocols. That's why I'm here. The team identified vulnerabilities requiring immediate attention. Interest flickered in her eyes. What sort of vulnerabilities? Critical ones. We need external support to address them before implementation. In Minus House resources can't handle it? Not with this timeline. We need specialists. She nodded, tapping her pen. I might have recommendations. We were hoping you would. The board trusts your vendor assessment. I'll prepare options by tomorrow. This is exactly why companies need efficiency experts minus to identify weaknesses before they become crises. As I left her office, my phone buzzed with a message from Scott. Access confirmed. Recording everything. The trap was set. Tuesday morning, Sterling called me into her office. 3 vendor proposals sat on her desk, TechFlow's logo visible on the top page. I've reviewed emergency support options. This one offers the most comprehensive solution. She slid TechFlow's proposal forward. I examined it, noting the extensive service list and astronomical price tag. Considerably more than our initial budget. Quality costs money. Would you rather save dollars or save the contract? I trust your judgment. What's the process? I'll present this to Harrison today. Given urgency, we should expect expedited approval. Will you need supporting documentation from my team? No, she said quickly. I have everything required. By afternoon, Scott had more news. She contacted TechFlow directly. Call traced to her personal phone, not office line. That evening, we reviewed what we collected. Security footage showed Sterling accessing project files at midnight when the building should be empty. Email records revealed deleted communications with TechFlow dating back weeks. Financial analysis showed suspicious patterns at her previous companies. Enough to raise questions, Diana said, but not conclusive proof. We need more, and we need it before Friday's emergency board meeting. Anthony looked up from his tablet. What if we give her exactly what she wants? Make it easy for her, Perry added. People get careless when they think they're winning. Thursday morning, I entered Harrison's office with rehearsed concern. We've discovered critical issues with Blackwater. Multiple security vulnerabilities appearing in previously tested code. His eyebrows shot up. How is that possible? We're investigating, but implementation is in serious jeopardy. Sterling suggested external support. That would exceed budget significantly. I know, but we may not have options. She's calling an emergency board meeting Friday. I'll be there. That afternoon, I made sure Sterling overheard my phone call, voice deliberately stressed. We can't fix it internally. Too many corrupted files. Yes. No, we don't know how it happened. When I hung up, Sterling appeared in my doorway. Problems with Blackwater? Major ones? The presentation files for tomorrow are in the shared drive if you need them. That night, security cameras recorded Sterling entering the building at 11:30 heading straight to her office. As predicted, she accessed the presentation files, making substantial modifications. At 6 a.m., Scott confirmed. She took the bait, modified demo files, inserted additional errors. Everything recorded. Friday morning, the boardroom filled with tension. Sterling arranged materials confidently while board members murmured among themselves. Harrison opened the meeting. We're here to discuss urgent Blackwater issues. Victoria, you've been investigating. Sterling stood, projecting authority. Unfortunately, I've uncovered serious problems throughout the project. What began as minor concerns has revealed fundamental flaws. She launched into detailed presentation highlighting numerous issues minus some real, most fabricated, all allegedly stemming from my team's work. These aren't simple bugs. These are architectural failures threatening the entire platform. Board members exchanged worried glances. Admiral Fletcher leaned toward me, whispering, "Is this accurate?" "Wait." I whispered back. Sterling built toward her solution. Given timeline constraints on issue severity, I recommend immediate intervention by external specialists. She displayed Tech Flow's proposal. Their comprehensive solution addresses all problems, though it requires budget adjustment. How significant? General Stone asked. Additional $1.80 million. The room erupted in concerned discussion. Sterling waited patiently, the picture of professional concern masking triumph. Harrison turned to me. Garrett, your assessment. This was the moment. I stood slowly. Before responding, I'd like to run a demonstration. I connected my laptop to the projector. The screen displayed Blackwater's interface, sleek and functional. This is the actual current build as of this morning. I'll run standard security tests. The system executed perfectly. Security protocols engaging precisely as designed. Confusion spread across the boardroom. Sterling's expression hardened. That's impossible. Reports clearly showed critical failures in those exact protocols. Those reports were modified, I stated simply, just as project files were tampered with. Lentz filled the room. Serious accusation, Harrison said carefully. Do you have evidence? Comprehensive evidence. I changed the display to split minus screen security recording. Left side showed Sterling entering the building Wednesday night. Right side displayed her computer screen as she methodically altered test results and inserted malicious code. What is this? Sterling demanded, voice rising. Security footage and screen recording software. Standard protocol for critical project access. I advanced to another clip. Sterling on her personal phone. We've created the necessary problems. The board will approve emergency intervention tomorrow. Yes, the full $1.80 million. Standard arrangement for consultation fees. The boardroom erupted. Sterling lunged for my laptop. This is fabricated. They're trying to frame me. Security entered, summoned by Harrison's signal. That's not all. It continued despite my racing heart. We've compiled similar patterns from her previous 3 companies. Diana distributed folders containing financial analysis showing suspicious payments following each tech flow contract. These are kickbacks. Diana explained. Approximately 22% of each contract routed through shell companies to personal accounts. Admiral Fletcher studied the documents. Expression grave. The pattern is undeniable. Sterling's facade completely collapsed. You set me up. No, I replied evenly. We watched while you did exactly what you've done at 3 other companies. The difference is this time we were paying attention. Harrison stood. Security will escort you to clear your office. Legal is waiting to discuss next steps. As she was led away, still protesting, tension transformed into stunned silence. The Blackwater project was never at risk? Admiral Fletcher asked quietly. No. We identified her pattern early and protected actual files. What she tampered with were duplicates created specifically to track her actions. General Stone shook his head. How long has she been doing this? Based on financial analysis, at least 6 years across multiple companies. Diana explained. Conservative estimate of fraudulent contracts $8.70 million. The meeting shifted to recover planning. As discussions continued, I watched my team minus 6 remarkable people who'd saved the company again. Harrison pulled me aside afterward. You could have brought this to me immediately. Why the elaborate operation? We needed irrefutable evidence, and we needed to understand the full scope. He nodded slowly. The board has decided to create a permanent position for your team with direct reporting lines to leadership. We're calling it Strategic Operations Division. Will you lead it? For weeks later, Blackwater launched flawlessly. My team celebrated in our new office space minus no longer a forgotten conference room, but a proper department with resources and recognition. The news reported Sterling's arrest on multiple fraud charges. Previous companies launched investigations into contracts she'd arranged. TechFlow faced federal scrutiny for their role in the scheme. As we toasted success, I looked around at these 6 people who'd become family. To recognizing value in unexpected places, I said, raising my glass. And to leaders who actually look, Rachel added. And to never underestimating veterans. Scott laughed, getting approving nods from Anthony and Perry. Sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't dramatic confrontation. It's ensuring truth becomes visible. Sterling believed in cutting people without understanding their worth. Her greatest mistake wasn't targeting my T-. It was assuming we'd disappear quietly. We didn't. And now she'll have years to reflect on that miscalculation. 6 months later, our Strategic Operations Division had grown to 12 people. We'd landed 2 additional DoD contracts worth $12 million combined. Most importantly, we'd established a veteran hiring initiative that had placed 40-3 former military personnel in defense contractor positions across the region. Admiral Fletcher visited our offices that spring, touring the facility with obvious pride. You know, Garrett, what you've built here goes beyond just business success. You've created something that matters. He was right. We hadn't just survived Sterling's attack minus, we turned it into an opportunity to prove what experienced, undervalued people could accomplish when someone finally gave them the chance. That's the real lesson here. Sometimes the people others write off as expensive overhead are exactly the ones who'll save you when everything falls apart. You just have to be smart enough to recognize their worth before it's too late. Sterling learned that lesson the hard way. We made sure of it. Experience beats credentials every time minus in a world obsessed with degrees and certifications. The people who've actually done the work, solved real problems, and earned their knowledge through years in the trenches are the ones who'll pull you through when everything's on the line. Never mistake quiet competence for weakness minus. The most dangerous opponents aren't the ones making noise in boardrooms minus. They're the ones who've been watching, learning, and building networks while everyone else was busy talking.